Morning, boys and girls, and all of God's children. Welcome to the South District Church School neighborhood. I'm Sister Angie Spears, the excited South District Church School Superintendent, and our presiding elder is the Reverend Janet Jenkins Sturdivant of the South District of the Philadelphia Annual Conference. Again, we welcome you today. Our special word for today is favor. Favor. Do you know what favor is, boys and girls? Favor is what happens when you please God. You get His favor. You receive extra blessings. Sometimes it's easy to describe a word by telling the opposite. So the opposite of favor would be wrath and anger. Do you remember the story that we read a few weeks ago? And it was about Queen Esther and King Ahasuerus and Haman. And Haman had earned the king's wrath. He was so angry. Who has devised this evil plan, he asked. And then at the end, Haman was actually hung for all of his bad deeds that he had done. So that's showing wrath, a king's wrath. But the opposite of that is favor. And when we have God's favor, God is pleased with us. I like to think of it, when we have God's favor, we've made Him smile. We're doing things that are totally pleasing to God. In today's lesson, our lesson is titled Jesus in the Temple. And it's also titled, if we're looking at the adult book, it's called The Boy Jesus. And our lesson text is coming from Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1 and 7b. And then we go to Luke in the New Testament, chapter 2, verses 39 through 52. And what we're going to learn in today's lesson is that Jesus has God's favor. And you're going to see that word twice as we're reading. And you're going to, as you know, we're studying wisdom. And what's going to happen in today's lesson? Jesus now is growing. When we meet Him in today's lesson, He's 12 years old. And He is searching for wisdom. And we know when Solomon sought for wisdom, God was very, very pleased. Let's find out what happens as Jesus searches for wisdom. We're in Luke chapter 2, and I'm going to start at verse 40. The child grew, the child is Jesus, and became strong, filled with wisdom, and the favor of God was upon him. He was filled with wisdom, and the favor of God was on him. And that's actually our memory verse for today. Here we go. Luke 2, verse 40. The child grew and became strong, filled with wisdom, and the favor of God was upon him. Let's continue. Verse 41. Now every year his parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up as usual for the festival. So he's with his parents. When the festival was ended and they started to return, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem. But his parents did not know it. They didn't realize that Jesus wasn't with them. Assuming that he was in the group of travelers, they went a day's journey. Then they started to look for him among their relatives and friends. Sounds a little bit like the modern day Home Alone, doesn't it? Remember how the little guy was separated from the family? Let's see where Jesus is. When they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem to search for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple. In the temple. Temple is like the church. Sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. To me, it makes me think of Jesus being in Sunday school. He's in the temple. He's asking the teachers. He wants to learn more about God. 47. And all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said to him, "Child, why have you treated us like this? Look, your father and I have been searching for you in great anxiety." They were like, "We've lost Jesus." He said to them, "Why were you searching for me? Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house?" God is his Father, and he's in God's house by being in the temple. But when they did not understand what he said to them, then he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was obedient to them. So he is obedient. His mother treasured all these things in her heart. And then verse 52, and Jesus increased in wisdom and in years and in divine and human favor. Do you see how when we started out, it mentions him increasing in God's favor? And then when we get down to verse 53, again, Jesus continues to grow in wisdom and in divine, in human favor. God favors Jesus. And we know that he's his only begotten son. What a lovely, lovely story. Both Patches and Buttercup had examples of favor. They understood favor when we read today's lesson. And Buttercup, what did you tell us, Buttercup? He reminded me of the time that he went fishing with his friend Archie and Archie's dad. Remember that story, how he got up really early so that he would be ready to go fishing? Well, Buttercup says on the day that they went fishing, Buttercup did very well. What did you say? Archie's dad caught 2 fish that day. Archie caught 1 small fish, and Buttercup caught 4 fish. And Archie's dad said to him, "Buttercup, the fish have favored you today." Great example, Buttercup. And Patches also had an example about favor. Patches says that one of his grandmothers loves to cook. She loves to bake cakes and pies. And one day when all of the cousins were over, or quite a few of the cousins were over, they were all outside except for Patches. He was in the kitchen with Grandma, and he was helping her. He was like, "Grandma, I can get this for you. I know where the flour is. Can I help you? I can get the eggs out of the refrigerator." Well, Grandpa shows up, and he says, "Patches, why are you in the kitchen today? Why aren't you outside with all of the cousins?" And then the grandfather says, "I think you're trying to win Grandma's favor." And he winked at Patches and left. And guess what? When everything was all prepared and all the cakes were in the oven, Grandma let Patches have the spoon, and he was able to lick the icing out of the bowl and the spoon. So he had Grandma's favor. Great example, both of you, for favor. And so certainly, what could be more important? What could be more special than having God's favor? And we get God's favor when we have faith in God, we obey God, and we go to God for wisdom. And that's what we've learned from Jesus, even as he starts out as a young little guy. In today's story, he's only 12 years old, and yet he goes for wisdom, and he has God's favor. Let's take a look again at that memory verse. Here we go. It's Luke chapter 2, verse 40. The child grew and became strong, filled with wisdom, and the favor of God was upon him. I thought I had it here. Oh, here we go. Let's see if you can fill this out with us. The child grew and became strong, filled with, and the of was upon him. Can you fill that out with me? The child grew and became strong, filled with wisdom, and the favor, forgive me, and the favor of God was upon him. Let's do that again. The child grew and became strong, filled with wisdom, and the favor of God was upon him. And that's Luke 2, verse 40. Thank you so much. We look forward to you joining us next week. Our lesson topic is the wisdom of Jesus, and we'll be in the Gospel of Mark, the 6th chapter, verses 1 through 6. Until then, God bless you. Bye-bye.